This is your Chargers linebacker, Daiyan Henley, and you're tuning in with Chargers Unleashed.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Wolkenstein here with you from the LAFB Network. If this is your first time tuning in to the show, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Dan Wolkenstein.
Oh, it feels good.
It feels very good.
Normally I would have to put like the chime sound effect in here to get you excited, but no more.
You should probably
no more.
Try to dub in just, like the NFL on CBS, tunes, anything that as it relates to football in general being back. And football is officially back, with the Chargers being the early ones to kick off their training camp last week. We were trying to get an episode out over the weekend to recap a lot of the events that took place during the first few days of training camp. Unfortunately, time did not permit itself to do that at that point in time. So it is now Monday. Dan and I have some time, obviously. So we're going to be recapping the first 4 days of Chargers training camp practice. That's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and following practice earlier today on Monday. So lots to get into, as first day of training camp seems like forever ago now, and a lot of stuff has happened already since then. But damn it, Dan, training camp is officially open. Fans are back to the field. The pads come on tomorrow, and we're just 10 days away from the Hall of Fame game, first preseason game of the season. Chargers against the Lions. How are you feeling?
Oh, I feel great. Oh, I feel great. Seeing pads on now, which is fantastic. We're seeing 4 days worth of practice and camp for this Chargers team. We've had LAFB out in training camp at the podium, fielding questions, making sure that we can provide you guys with some context and insights here for Chargers fans. And it's been quite a doozy of a 4-day stretch. I mean, day one was a little rough.
Day one.
Day one was a little rough.
Hell of a day one.
You saw the news of Mike Williams' retirement, which was sudden and unexpected by a lot of people, both in and out of the organization. You heard latest on Najee Harris, who's going to be the ex-receiver now that Mike Williams is gone.
Sorry, I mean Trey Harris, not Najee Harris. Or yeah. You said Najee.
Yeah.
You said Najee.
Yes, well, Najee Harris. That's what yes, Najee Harris. There are 2 players on this team. Najee Harris and Trey Harris.
There's a lot of Harrises.
Yeah, and there's news on both, actually. So we'll get into all of that. So I guess let's just go day by day by day. Scratch that. Let's not do that. Up to now, biggest storyline for you?
Biggest storyline? That's a good question, Dan, actually. The biggest storyline for me is probably, you might not think that I would go with this. It's funny. I'm actually going through them right now in my head. And for a split second, I was going to talk about the running back spot, considering the fact that Najee Harris isn't practicing, and neither has Raheem Sanders at this point in time. So it's given a lot more ample opportunity for Kamani Vidal, who we've talked about on this show, as far as battling it out for one of the final running back spots. It's great for him. But I think you have to go with the Mike Williams / Trey Harris storyline. I think that's going to then bleed into the responsibilities of one Quentin Johnston as it relates to this team. And especially when you've heard rumblings, especially after practice on Saturday. Normally, this is how it goes during the first week of training camp. This is nothing new. The defense normally dominates during the first few practices of training camp. That's nothing new. It's just normally how it goes, especially as it relates to the Chargers. Yep. But especially now, when you see the very unexpected retiring of Mike Williams come day one, thankfully the Chargers ended up getting the contract situation with Trey Harris put behind them. He comes into camp. Saw some quick highlights of his presence on Friday, which was very nice. And then Quentin Johnston had himself a day at practice earlier today. Watching this wide receiver room now have to play itself out is going to be very interesting. I don't think that much has changed as it relates to what our projections were. But I think, especially if, let's just say from the standpoint as of now, the wide receiver room stays the way it is. I don't expect it to. I think the Chargers will be on the market for more wide receiver help, but let's just take it for what it is as it stands right now. And let's move into what Dan likes to call a hypothetical situation.
Oh boy,
on
here we
these
go.
shows. So you take Mike Williams out of the equation. Trey Harris instantly becomes the primary X option for this team. And rightfully so. That's what he was great at Ole Miss, especially when it comes to contested catches. You know what you're going to have in Ladd McConkey. And then comes Quentin Johnston, who today actually had 2 deep passes that he caught. One that was on Triquez Bridges, and the other one that I believe was caught on Nico Reed for the 2 that he caught for touchdowns. And if you saw where his position was, it looked like he was playing at the X receiver spot on both of those passes. Dan, I don't want to take too much time in this because I know you have a lot to say on this as it relates to Quentin, and I'm not here to knock Quentin at all. But I think that there's more to the Quentin Johnston situation that really needs to be talked about because this is a terrific opportunity for him. And he said on Saturday that he has the most confidence in himself going into this season than he has in the previous 2. But you kind of look at the writing on the wall before training camp starts, and you go back and you reassess what the Chargers did from a roster standpoint in just one offseason. Assuming that Mike Williams didn't retire, you went out and signed Mike Williams as downfield, X receiver, contested catch option. You go out and you draft Trey Harris as a downfield contested catch option. You also draft KLS in the same draft, who's a speedster, can also go get the deep balls. You signed Ladd McConkey 1 year ago. That's 4 players through free agency and the draft that you invested in for a wide receiver spot. This comes 2 years after Quentin Johnston is drafted.
Let alone the Jalen Reagors and...
Yes. I didn't even mention DJ Chark in that conversation, even though technically nobody saw DJ Chark until the last game of the season last year. But nonetheless, you kind of see the writing on the wall that I think that the Chargers are trying to cover their bets. Because while the rookie season of Quentin Johnston was a rough one, there were improvements made in year 2. But I think you kind of figured out some good things and some bad things from year 2 for Quentin. I think this coaching staff figured out what works best for Quentin. And I don't believe that it's as an X receiver. Where he can get most productive, and Dan, you were tweeting out over the weekend some of these clips of him, is more slotted for the Z receiver spot. Get him out into space. Get him open to move across the field. That's where he does his best work. So I'm interested to see how this is all going to shake out as these next weeks of training camp move forward, as the preseason moves forward. And ultimately, when we get into the regular season, are you going to keep him there? If the Chargers don't go out and get another free agent option at wide receiver, are you going to try to make Quentin Johnston, capable of playing both? I think it's a very, we obviously know it's a huge year for Quentin Johnston in terms of his own expectations for what he has for himself, which could make or break his expectations going forward with the roster beyond 2025. But this is going to be an interesting situation to see how it plays out. Again, I'm rooting for Quentin Johnston. I am not trying to downplay or overplay this situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
it is one to watch. That is for sure.
So your answer to the biggest storyline is wide receiver watch?
First 4 days of training camp, yes.
So far.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, and I probably would agree with you in the sense of impact to this Chargers team success. And you could parlay that with pass catchers in general when you look at the Tyler Conklins and the Aronde Gadstons. But yeah, the Mike Williams retirement is a big one. And that puts a lot of pressure on the rest of this crew, and probably none more so than Quentin and Trey Harris. And Quentin, if you're relying on him to be your X receiver, which Greg Roman said he can do, you're hoping that he can improve in the things that he was probably the worst at. Contested catches, deep downfield, in isolation, separation on the boundary, like all of these things. And of course, hands. Like these are all the pieces that as an X receiver, you have to be pretty darn good at. And Quentin, quite frankly, like has to improve. He knows that. The team knows that. The fan base knows that. We also have heard that he has worked his ass off this offseason. His confidence is high. And he's improved on some of those things. And he has improved from year 1 to year 2. So are they expecting Quentin to be that glow up transformation into now the X receiver? Or I suspect probably more so Trey Harris to be that. Now, could they each be both? Yes. You talk about cross referencing positions. Like they probably would, in theory, like to have both of them play different positions. But that wide receiver room now, in my opinion, you're relying on a lot of things that you haven't seen yet. And that's risky business. Now, could it play out? Sure. Do I want it to play out? Absolutely. But is that a risk that Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz are willing to live and die off of? I'm not sure. And so these next few weeks, I think, are going to be really indicative on this roster, especially the wide receiver room. If you see a move at wide receiver, that tells you all you need to know about their confidence in this receiving room's current ability to do what they need. Now, you see Quentin continue to ball out. You see Trey Harris step up. You see Jalen Reagor continue to do what he does. Ladd McConkey stays Ladd McConkey. Like, there's a lot of opportunity where maybe they think this is good, right? But there's risk involved. Is the wide receiver room better than last year still? Yes, it is. Trey Harris is a massive, massive improvement to this wide receiver room.
Hard to get worse than what it was last year.
Right, but I've seen people say, like, oh, now we're just as bad as last year. Like, stop. Ladd McConkey's going to be better this year. Quentin's probably going to be better this year. Darius Davis might be more involved. We'll see KLS, who's now at practice again. They've improved. But, yeah, the Mike Williams retirement, which I don't think this has to be said, but thank you, Michael Williams, for literally everything. You were one of our favorite interviews. We had you on the show probably
twice.
5 times. No, way more than twice.
Is it more?
We've had him twice here. We've had him twice in camp. Like we've had Mike Williams on quite a bit.
I think it's probably because the only one that I was actually able to be a part of was the one that we had with him at training camp. That's probably why it's not like that for me.
Yes. so
yes, as Dan's saying.
Real quick, I don't know if you hear this, but my daughter's saying hi. Hello, Avery.
Is she upset about the Mike Williams retirement as much as everybody else was?
She wants to share her Barbie currently.
Okay,
Barbie.
much different situation.
Yes. Then. She was a little torn up. She does have we have a Mike Williams jersey here. It's the kids version, so yeah, she was a little upset. But other than wide receiver, I think Daiyan Henley's a big one.
Oh yeah,
I think if this team has a linebacker who's an All-Pro or at that level, which we've heard Derwin allude to, we've seen a lot of players talk about, and Daiyan himself with his own, expectations he has on himself. This defense with a nasty linebacker is going to be fun to watch. And we haven't even talked about Junior Colson, which that's another storyline kind of blending in with that combo, I think is an important one. The other one, I guess, if you were, there's a bunch of storylines that we're going to kind of go into rapid fire here. But if I had to take another big one, I think it has to be Omarion Hampton. It has to be.
Sure.
If you ask me what is the single biggest transaction, quote unquote, that reshapes this team, it's probably him. I think it's him more so than Trey Harris, more so than any of the free agents we saw this team get. Maybe Mekhi Becton. Yeah, that there's an argument there. But he changes the style in which this team wants to play. And you pair Mekhi with him, and you see kind of him showing out already, like that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Other stories. Elijah Molden, Jake?
Nice to get that news yesterday.
Yep. Off the pup list, now in pads, now working out. Rashawn Slater is in the building.
Working off to the side.
Working off to the side, but working off to the side is better than not being there at all. Like,
True.
This might be one of those, like, hold-in type situations, which he doesn't need to prove a damn thing to me. So, fine.
Yes. He didn't practice on Saturday, as coaches said that it was considered a rest day for him. Yes. Staying on the offensive line, Dan, if we go by the timeline in which Jim Harbaugh said that he was going to have the left guard and center situation figured out, remember he had said about a month ago, maybe it was around the time of OTAs and minicamp, that his expectation was that he was going to have that situation, that idea of who was going to be slotted where, about after 8 to 10 days of training camp. So if we're going practices, we just completed the 4th day of training camp practice. There's a lot of practices this week for the Chargers. I believe there's actually 6 days of practice that they have, which means going into the Hall of Fame game next week, we should have a pretty damn good idea as far as what the rotation is going to look like moving forward for the next several weeks. And as the Chargers were doing in previous offseason activities, they are rotating Daiyan Johnson and Bradley Bozeman on alternating days between center and left guard. Today, Daiyan Johnson was back at center. During Saturday's practice, it was Bradley Bozeman at center, and so on and so forth. So 2 practices, Bradley Bozeman and Daiyan Johnson have both played in alternating days, center and left guard. I will assume that by the time that we jump back on here a week from now, we will have heard some official slotting of who's going to be at what position getting ready for that Hall of Fame game.
How do you feel about this right now? Are you confident? Are you worried? Like, what, 1 to 10, 1 being like this team's going to get absolutely trucked, 10 being we got all pros across the board?
I've said it multiple times. I would have gone a different route on this, as especially getting Andre James more in the mix for the center spot. But we're now in the beginning of training camp. Everything that Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz that they have told us is exactly how they plan on carrying out their vision as it relates to this position. Again, I gave it 2 scenarios. By the time that we hit week 1 of the regular season, it was either going to be Daiyan Johnson at center or it was going to be Andre James. You don't play back the same 5 offensive line combinations, save for Mekhi Becton, but you don't play Bradley Bozeman back at center and Daiyan Johnson at left guard because you've seen that tape. Houston put a stamp on that for you during the playoffs last year. You do not rewind back to that. So you don't run that back.
Mm-hmm.
To your question as it relates to confidence, it's hard to put a number on that. Now, everything that you've heard thus far from Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert, anybody else in terms of the confidence, the athleticism of Daiyan Johnson definitely gives him a good leg up as it relates to the center position. But we're still talking about a player who has never played center before in his pro or college career. So is it natural to feel a little bit nervous about that? Damn right. Sure. I don't know how it's going to play out. I really do not. But, Dan, I'm not on the team. I'm not in the coaches' meetings.
Yeah.
And as we all know, Daiyan Johnson's 5th year of his contract was not picked up. So this is a contract year for him. But the Chargers front office and their coaching staff are giving him every opportunity to earn a second contract, and you're doing it by putting him at a new position. The confidence must be otherworldly for Daiyan Johnson to be able to handle this type of task.
Yeah, and again, like, they have some in case of emergency break glass contingencies, right? Like they brought in Andre James, like they can switch over with Bozeman and Johnson if they need to, right? There's some other, they drafted the guard, right? Like they have some options, so they're not thin of options. It's just which one of them will be like the starting caliber that you can rely on. That's the question. I think it's important to not go too far with the Oronde Gadsden hype, which I'm there. I'm there.
Sure, Dan?
I think context matters, and I think you have to put this in perspective of two things can be true. Is Oronde Gadsden the most athletic tight end this Chargers team has on the roster? Yes, clearly, by far. I think he has the most potential in terms of explosiveness, right? To do work that's going to be on Sports Center, that's going to be showcased on highlights on Twitter. Like, that's Oronde Gadsden. But I'm not necessarily sure if he's going to be the one that's going to be tight end one who gets the most targets. Like, I think that's Tyler Conklin. He is reliable, dependable. I think that's the guy that this Chargers team trusts right now.
Did not expect that answer coming from you, of all people.
I don't know why. I think I said this like a month ago. Like, honestly, I love Oronde Gadsden. I think he's going to be a stud. I was so high and still am so high on him. But I think we need to temper expectations on what you're going to see from him. Because right now it sounds like, oh, he's diamond in the rough, going to be all pro year one. Pro Bowl year one.
I don't
tight end one. Hell.
I don't think that we need to go that far.
Listen to some of the people talking about it.
I'm with you.
But what I'm saying is, I think him getting even just becoming tight end one, I think is going to be hard in year one. In terms of targets.
In terms of targets.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But in terms of explosive plays, dynamic plays that you haven't seen Chargers tight ends do, yes, that is him. That is him. But like, let's pump the brakes on, I don't know.
Well, then tell 86 to stop doing these highlight reel catches and making everything look good, and the rapport with Justin Herbert.
All of that is great,
essentially hitting the ground running since rookie minicamp. Go out and tell him to stop doing it so that everybody can, not be buying stock.
I know. Again, I understand why people are excited about him, but at the same time, you also have a veteran tight end here who I think this staff trusts that's going to have to get beat. Now, put them both out there. Sure. I love that. 2 tight end sets. Let's rock. Right? Like, cool. Yeah, I think the Najee Harris, not Trey Harris, Najee Harris news, unfortunate, crazy, ridiculous. But him not being there opens the door for those other running backs, like you mentioned. Chargers signed... is it Raheem Lane?
They had
Hines?
They had Naheem
Lane. I don't know why I said Raheem Lane. Jeez.
You were going with a combination of Rocket Sanders and some other player.
Naheem Hines, is that who it is?
I believe that they tried him out. I don't believe that they actually signed him.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
So they're looking for that kind of complementary style. Again, he is not the same kind of running back as a Najee Harris and an Omar Hampton. So don't think, oh no, Najee Harris is now out. Like they're different, very different types. Running back room is interesting. We talked about offensive line. I think the secondary, Jesse Minter has talked about a lot about the depth of that room. I think they're really high on Dante Jackson. We'll see what Cam Hart-Target still look like. But again, like that, I think that's like one of the easiest in Jesse Minter I trust and Steve Klingskill I trust. Next, like I doubted it last year and I look like a fool. So not doing that again. Jake, what do you make of the interior defensive line?
Yeah, we kind of got our first glimpse of it as far as the early rotation, what it was going to look like, because and Jesse Minter alluded to this when he was up at the podium a few days ago, that they believe that it's going to be a nice, healthy rotation. And obviously they're deeper, but much like I figured it was going to be with the moves that they had made during free agency and the draft. You're trying to basically replace the production of Poona Ford and Morgan Fox by a committee in this circumstance. And I'm so interested to see how this is ultimately going to play out. So your starters that you had for the first days of practice up front was Tyler Tartan and Deshaun Hand. That was your starters at the interior defensive line position. Then you obviously had Thule and Khalil Mack at your edge spots there. How much work is Naquan Jones now going to get? How much work is Jamari Caldwell going to get? We have heard throughout the offseason. Yes, we've heard throughout the offseason about how confident and expectations that this coaching staff has for Justin Ebogbe. That's 6 right there that we were just talking about.
Yeah, what is Scott Matlock?
What is ultimately going to be the rotation for all these guys? Because here's the great thing about the situation that the Chargers have themselves in is that you have a room of guys who can be great at one thing that you need. I don't really think that there is until I actually see it, because I know obviously Tyler Tartan is going to get the opportunity to step up more in a leadership role going forward with this team. I think you're going to look to Deshaun Hand to do that as well, given that he's a veteran of that locker room. But you kind of have a bunch of guys that could be a jack of trades, master of none, or guys that are great at one thing, and that's specifically what you need them for. So what's the rotation going to be? Jamari Caldwell might end up being the most versatile defensive lineman that you have on your team in terms of what he can do against the run and getting after the quarterback. What's the package going to look like for him? Tito's predominantly great at being a good run defender. Same for Justin Ebogbe when he came out of college, but I think that they're going to expect a lot more of him in terms of his pass rush ability. But how are you going to build this makeshift defensive line room? And in terms of bringing it out to using each player to the best of their abilities for the packages that you have out there. I'll be interested to see it.
Moving on. Jalen Reagor. You're seeing some pretty nice grabs by Jalen Reagor. I don't know what to make of that. It's not bad news, that's for sure. The staff seems to be high on Jalen Reagor. His draft position was high. What do you make of the Jalen Reagor seemingly impact?
Well, you take advantage of a Mike Williams retirement. And we didn't talk about Jalen Reagor when it came to our predictions for the 53-man rosters, more specifically when we were talking about how many wide receivers the Chargers were going to keep. Because remember, last year they kept 7. I don't think you keep 7 this year. And that's regardless of if there is another person that is brought into that room. I don't believe that you keep 7. But as of now, with the change in the wide receiver room over the last week, you could say confidently that Jalen Reagor, as of right now, may have a spot in that wide receiver room. Yeah. You're asking me what I think about the catches from Jalen Reagor? Great. Good for him. He and QJ essentially have handled a lot of the deep ball highlights over the first 4 practices. It's good. Just got to see it during the regular season.
Yes, and when you do catch it, please hold on to it on the sideline within the 5-yard line. It'd be great. It'd be wonderful. RJ Mickens. So let's talk about some of the rookies. We talked about Gadsden already. RJ Mickens has had an interception so far. Trey Harris is now out there in pads. I haven't really seen or heard much about the Jamar Caldwell stuff, but so far, the rookies seem to be as advertised. KLS is now out there, which is a sight to see. Great news. But Omarion Hampton, Trey Harris, Gadsden already providing huge impact. If KLS can as well, that'd be massive. RJ Mickens fighting for a roster spot right now, putting in impact plays early. We'll see if this rookie class can continue. But if they can get 4 guys to impact this team from their rookie class, like, you sign up for that. With a deep roster, that's a win.
Yeah, I was going to put the line at you're lucky if like any draft class, if you're able to get 3 or more that are able to come in and immediately produce, you've hit something. And the first 3 that Dan named just now, those are the big 3 that you're thinking could step in immediately due to what the respective room looks like and what you need from them. And you're talking about 3 guys in Hampton, Harris, and Gadsden that could step on the field week 1 and be instant contributors.
That's not including KLS. That's not including Kyle Kennard.
Nope.
That's not including Triquez Bridges.
No.
Which, Kyle Kennard's staying on the roster. KLS is for sure. I mean,
pretty nice expectations to have for players who were drafted 1st, 2nd, and 5th. Pretty nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And boy, is it nice to see Justin Herbert chucking it again. I feel like every month there's some idiot online who's trolling Justin Herbert and saying that he's whatever. And the guy just ho-hum, just keeps doing what he does, right? Now he's doing it with these red contact lenses. Have you seen these? Like, and you see some people put like thumbnails out on YouTube where they have like the crazy eyes. Like, now he just is that. But Justin's throwing darts. I mean, that throw he gave to Jalen Reagor in the corner, that deep one, insane.
I mean, take your pick from the highlights that you've seen, whether it's his, whether it's the one to Trey Harris, whether it's the 2 today from Quentin Johnston.
The Gadsden one, the one to Quentin the other day where he down the middle, where he goes over his shoulder catch, kind of an awkward one. Like, yeah, he's just fine. And again, this team lives and breathes and will die with the hands of Justin Herbert. Like, he is their number one reason why their expectations. But so far, he's as advertised. Again, one of the guys I don't have to worry about.
We were all wondering what Cameron Dicker was talking about when he was on that show, when he was explaining that they went out for a night. Justin Herbert, and I can't remember who the 3rd player was, but they went out and they put on these red contact lenses. And he was saying, it's like, we look like a bunch of vampires rolling into this restaurant. And now we know what it's for. They're UV protected, and apparently, according to Justin Herbert, doctor approved contact lenses. He said he tried with the visor last year, and just too often it would get fogged up, which is why he's gone this route for UV protection. But hey, man, he already looks great throwing the ball. So if you can make him look like Blade or the Daywalker while doing it, it just makes it look that much cooler.
Yeah, I think another storyline too is, we talked about the depth of the cornerback room, but we talked about in the last episode about how important it is for guys who are trying to keep a roster spot.
Oh, yeah.
And you saw RJ Mickens, Dean Leonard. We've seen show out now as well, which I like Dean Leonard a lot. Yeah, he had pick six one of the first few days, right?
Mm-hmm. I believe it was the 2nd day of practice. No, excuse me. 3rd day of practice. He ended up getting a pick 6.
So those are big for those players. When you're trying to make this team, special teams is the way to do it, which Dean Leonard, that's his calling card as well. But you think about like Dean Leonard, Triquez Bridges, Jahsir Taylor, RJ Mickens. It kind of seems like those guys are battling it out for 3 spots max. So keep your eyes out for those players and the plays that they make as camp continues. I know we've kind of gone rapid fire here through a lot, and there's only so much you can glean from training camp, let alone training camp without pads, which are now having pads on, which is good. Any key storylines that you feel are under the radar or that we haven't discussed?
Yeah, it's not so much with position based, Dan. It's more individual based. Let's go with Tuli Tuipulotu and Junior Colson. Let's start with Tuli for a second because he was at the podium on day 2. He, Jesse Minter, Khalil Mack were up there. Jesse Minter was talking about the expectations for Tuli going into this season, obviously overtaking for Joey Bosa and what they expected out of him, what they believe in him already. And we've known from the mic'd up episodes from last year how much Jesse Minter loves Tuli. So they're fully confident in his ability to come in with a starter package of snaps to take on that role for Joey Bosa. Second of all, when Tuli got up on the at the podium and he was talking about, the standards for himself, how could you come up with any better answer when he says, my standard is to play to Khalil's standard? He is the standard. I mean, you can't get any better of an answer from that. And later, of course, Khalil echoed that sentiment of what he has seen from him, that much kind of like in the way Daiyan Henley has become a voice of that locker room. Khalil Mack says, Tuli's been quiet, but when he speaks, people listen to him. So it's a huge year of expectations for Tuli jumping into year 3, first year as a full-time starter. You get all the advantages in the world of getting to be paired with a guy like Khalil Mack and what he's even teaching the rest of that room. Huge expectations for him, Dan. And I'm excited to see how this all ends up playing out, developing, because we know what Tuli can do in terms of getting after the passer. Mm-hmm. I think it's only going to get better. Where he needs to tighten up the screws a little bit is in the run game. And when we talked about Joey Bosa, when he was healthy, he was one of the best edge setters in the entire NFL when it came to going up against the run. That's going to be a big task for Tuli moving forward, no doubt about it. Jumping back over to Junior Colson for a second. He was at the podium after practice earlier today. He was lauding the coaching of linebackers coach Navarro Bowman in terms of him getting assistance from him during the offseason, whether it was his training regimen, his nutrition, his diet, whatever he needed help with. But he has gotten so much help from Daiyan, from Denzel Perryman in that locker room. And we talked about it, Dan, when he was drafted, and we've had him on the show before. You had mentioned earlier, the Chargers with a Daiyan Henley type linebacker, the way that he played last year, what we've already seen of him as a full-time starter in year 2 in these early days of camp. Imagine if you have 2. Because Junior Colson, honestly, even to today, even after 2 years of being installed in this Jesse Minter defense, knows more than 95% of that locker room for the defense because he lived it at Michigan. He knows what's expected of him, what Jesse Minter wants out of his defense. And you just get a duo that is athletic and intelligent of Junior Colson and Daiyan Henley to emerge in this defense throughout the season. Man, that is going to be a huge benefit for them.
It is. It is. And there was a quote from Jesse Minter that I thought was awesome. He talked about the standards. Jesse Minter said, quote, I operate on the standards instead of expectations. I operate on standards instead of expectations. The standards have risen so much with this Chargers defense, specifically this Chargers defense, to where when you have someone who says that, like, oh, yeah, I get it, versus when someone says that, and you're like, yeah, whatever. Sure. This defense is led by a pretty legit crew. You talk about the Kling Scales, you talk about the Navarro Bowmans, the Jesse Minter. Like, it runs deep. It runs deep. I'm curious to see as camp continues, now, the offensive line, I think, is going to be a bigger story as this week goes on in San Diego now, I believe. There's a lot of pressure on that left guard center stuff. And now's where you're going to start to see news coming from those positions, good and bad, internal or external. If the Chargers bring in somebody because of something happening or not happening in camp, who could possibly win those battles? I think that there was I saw a clip on Twitter. I don't know if you saw it, Jake, where it looked like there was a stunt happening and Daiyan let, I think it was Khalil, straight shot right to Justin. They let the play go, but it wasn't pretty. Again, you'd rather it be at camp, but still, this is where those stress tests begin. Anything else? You went through a ton here.
It's good 4 days of Chargers training camp practice thus far. It's great seeing people back out there. It's just that atmosphere of knowing that Chargers football is back. We're literally this close to preseason, and I don't think that anybody could be more excited just to have preseason NFL football back. It's wild to say that, but this is how depraved we are as football fans when it comes to this type of the year. So excited for what we're going to get here heading into the 5th practice of training camp with the pads coming on tomorrow, and how the rest of this week's going to play out. Dan, bold prediction, I'll give one for you. I think the Chargers will add to that wide receiver room before the end of the week.
Really?
Yes.
Huh. We'll see. We shall see. This is fun. I'm excited. I think right now for me, probably the biggest storyline of this entire camp so far has been / could be the emergence of Quentin due to the Mike Williams retirement, like that 1-2 combo thing. Now, again, we'll see. But Trey Harris is a big one. We'll see once pads come on, things change, right? Like, let's see how Oronde Gadsden looks and how much play he gets when the pads are on. We'll see how Daiyan, we'll see how Bozeman look with pads on. Could we see an Andre James sighting due to all of this? You know, we'll see how the defensive line, the interior defensive line specifically look. You know, go to Kyle Kennard, see how he starts looking, right? Like, this is where testing begins, and we are here for it. We have a preseason game in like less than 2 weeks. This is amazing. Feels great.
Dan, before we jump, you know, Twitter's a great thing when it comes, especially when it comes to live shows. We already know that Antonio Gates is going to be honored here within the next week, getting his Hall of Fame induction. But speaking of another legend of the Chargers franchise, Phillip Rivers and the Chargers decided to post a video. And not that we didn't think that this wasn't going to happen, but just to make it official, he comes on and he says, "My name is Phillip Rivers and I'm retiring as a Charger." Of course he is. Of course he is.
Yeah, get your Kleenex ready for this one.
So, good Lord.
Yeah. I think I saw something online where they had a mic open for folks to go and tell their favorite stories about him.
Man, put me in front of that mic. Put me in front of that mic. I would love to tell it because I know the exact story, I know the year, and I know the practice. Best part is it's not even on the field related for my story.
And it wasn't even this decade.
That's right. It wasn't even this decade. But long story short, it was actually the first training camp that I got a chance to participate in out on the field when I shadowed Eric Williams at the time when he was covering the Chargers for ESPN.
Are you going to tell us? Are you going to leave me? Is it a cliffhanger for later?
Tell you what, yeah, we'll leave it as a cliffhanger for later. There's your tease for maybe something that I'll cover in the next episode through the midst of what we get through the training camp week for the Chargers.
Okay, deal. If you haven't done so already, please follow Ryan Anderson over at LAFB, our colleague. He has been out at camp the last few days. He's written up a few stories. I think he just wrote a story today about the kind of the top 3 storylines with camp battles. So go check out his work. He is on X as well. And until the next episode, Jake, stay frosty, as the director would say. I don't know why I'm saying that right now. Jake's wearing a short sleeve shirt, not a hoodie.
Great quote.
Yeah.
Jesus, we waited until the last second possible of
podcast. It's hot here
to talk about my attire.
If you want to show off the guns, like, please feel free.
You almost made it out.
We're so close. Okay, I'm saying this because I'm jealous. Okay, if I could have the arms of steel as Jake Hefner, I'd be walking around tank tops, swole. but I don't. So I just wear regular t-shirts. And that's okay. That's a compliment, Jake. Take it. That's a compliment.
That's a great thing to wrap up the show on.
Yes, it is. I agree. There they are. For Jake Hefner, you can find him at Jake D. Hefner, myself at Dan W. Sports. Thank you so much for tuning in to Chargers Unleashed, and we'll talk to you. Wow, we'll talk to you.
Talks to you.
Any other bloopers that I can do? I'm happy to provide you.
You got 5 more seconds, so if you can think of any, get them out now.
Ow now, brown cow. Ow now, brown cow. Okay, bye.